It's interesting, that quote that Cal put there. I was actually going to read you that quote because to me, it's hugely important. And that is to take traumatic material and transform it to life-affirming action is the highest spiritual practice.
Woo!
And Val gave you a wonderful example of that when she spoke. And everybody that's here is talking about transition and, I assume, overcoming adversity. So I didn't really plan too much what I was going to say. I was just going to kind of wait and see what comes. So I'm just going to look at all you guys and come back.
You know what, I've been listening to your story. I really enjoyed you telling about your books. If you wouldn't mind, just talk about the books that you've written and where they came from.
Well, I can do that. I didn't want to mark it, but it is important, I think. My first book was titled Mining for Diamonds. And that is a book that's about people who have overcome adversity. And what I did in writing that book is I wanted to write about resiliency, and I wanted to study resiliency. So what I did is I found 20 people who had started life with high levels of adversity, who were now flourishing. And then I interviewed each of these 20 people about what I just arbitrarily decided were 20 resources that contributed to resiliency. Things like spirituality, luck, reverse resolve is a powerful one. I think I'll talk a second about reverse resolve. Again, Val's a beautiful example of that. When we have an experience, and actually the subtitle that I have in this section is When the Soul Cries No. When we have an experience and we, from the bottom of our being, we say, I will make it different. It will be different because it's unacceptable. It's not okay. So, so that's one of the examples. So I have a little book called Mining for Diamonds, and in that I talk about resiliency. Thanks for that, Kel. I can do this easily. And then my second book is titled What Happens When Women Wake Up. And interestingly, the title of that book was given to me by a psychic. I went to see a psychic and just kind of, listened. And in the midst of a whole hour long reading, she said, "You're going to write a book titled What Happens When Women Wake Up." And I just kind of took it with the rest of the information and didn't really think too much about it. Every now and then it would pop into my mind, and I'd go, "Did she really say that? Or did I make that up? Or what happened?" But so one day this is back in the days of cassette tapes, I took out the tape that she had given me, and I put it in my little Walkman. Some people probably don't know what a Walkman is. And I pushed the button in the middle of the tape, and it said, "What happens when women wake up?" So I went, okay, I'll take that as another sign. But still, I just kind of went on. And then I had an experience that was life-changing for me. And that is, and this is something I still have a lot of strong emotion about, my granddaughter was born, and my only granddaughter, and her mother, I think, had some social anxiety and had a lot of difficulty, I think, because, and they live in Texas. So when my granddaughter was born, I was really denied access to her. Not because she was angry at me, but because she needed to kind of close in her own world. So I had this granddaughter that I knew was going to be my only granddaughter, and I couldn't hold her. I couldn't see her. And that was one of the most painful experiences of my life. Also, frankly, one of the most anger-provoking experiences of my life. And I called my friend one day, my friends have heard this story over and over because it was hard for me to work through it. It's fully worked through now. But in my rage, frankly, I called a friend. I walked into Whole Foods, and I called her up and I said, "Today I'm starting to write What Happens When Women Wake Up." And interestingly enough, it was the anger that was a catalyst. Not that my writing was anything hurtful for anybody, but it was an energy that was so strong that it was catalytic, and I began that book. Mara's mother-in-law, and is it Russ?
Yes.
Your mother was one of the most important people for me in the process of writing that book. She supported me so powerfully and wrote the questions that were the source of the interview in the book. Yeah, Anne made sure that that book was written and it wasn't very smooth. So, yeah, that's really special to be able to think about that. So then, I know how I'm doing. I think I might be talking too long. How are we doing? Okay. And then my third book was titled Sacred Marching Orders. And that is about what I call the solar feminine. And that is the woman really standing in her power and really activating those lower three chakras. I learned about the divine feminine in my writing, yes, in Artemis, yes, and there's so many more of us that are able to be in that energy, and it's such an important time on the planet that we are in that energy. So thanks for cheering for the solar feminine. So,
turn to the lower three chakras.
Pardon?
Cheering for the lower three chakras.
Oh, all right, well, that's good. So in writing Sacred Marching Orders, actually I had, I consider myself kind of an expert really on listening. I've learned a lot about listening in my practice. I'm a psychotherapist. And so I started a book, I actually wrote a book, titled Sisters Stewarding the Shift. And it was interviews with women who were standing in their power, living from their passion. And we spoke in a I called it at that point essence to essence conversation, speaking from our truest self and holding the space for the other person to do that. And we did that back and forth, and I find that when we do that, I call it a third energy moves in and we follow spirit. A lot of people in the room know this kind of communication. So I wrote that book, and once it was done, I showed it to a few people, and they said, actually one of my friends said, what were you thinking? So the entire book I stopped, and I started completely over with Sacred Marching Orders. And then when we had Lucia in town, she was my inspiration for that book. So I think I'm going to quit talking, because I guess now that I've started, I can keep going. That's enough.